undertaken Operation Rising Lion, a large-scale military campaign aimed at halting Iran's nuclear ambitions. Now, on Friday, Israeli forces struck key Iranian targets, including nuclear facilities, ballistic missile production sites, and top military commanders. Explosions were reported across Iran, including at the major uranium enrichment plant in Natanz. Now, Iran state media said the head of the Revolutionary Guards, Hossein Salami, was killed in the Israeli attack. Reports also say a residential area in Tehran was hit, killing several children. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called it a decisive moment in the nation's history. Now, in a recorded address, he vowed the operation would continue for as many days as it takes to eliminate what he described as an existential threat from Tehran. Well, markets are not responding well at all to the latest that we are hearing from the conflict in the Middle East, now really reaching its high point. It seems Israel has gone ahead and conducted the Israeli Air Force fighter jets have gone and conducted strikes at the uranium enrichment plant in Iran. Oil prices have shot up as much as 12% on this news. And if you look at the markets as they open right now, the Indian markets are also down. All indices, all major stocks on the Nifty50 are in red this morning. Reliance Industries is down 1.6%. Coal India is down 1.6%. And this is the bloodbath that we are seeing on the markets right now. We have Mr. Feroze Azeez joining in this morning. Feroze Azeez is the Joint Chief of Anand Rathi Wealth. Feroze, good morning. Another piece of bad news for the stock markets, not just in India, across the world. If this conflict were to continue, and it seems that it is likely to continue, at least that is what we are hearing from Benjamin Netanyahu, what happens to oil prices? What happens to investors who are invested in stock markets?
Good morning, Kartik. Like you rightly said, there's one more bad news. But fortunately, it's not the last nail in the coffin for the fact that there is already a lot of selling from an Indian standpoint. If I look at it from a capital market standpoint, equities have already seen some selling in the futures market. FIIs have a 78% short position in index futures as of yesterday. If this news came where if they were 78% long in index futures, the news has a different impact. When they're just 22% long like they were yesterday, the news has a different impact, point one. Point two, since we've also in the cash market returned close to about 4 lakh crores over the last year and a half to FIIs, we don't have too much to give away. The frothy monies of FIIs, especially hedge funds and active fund managers, have already quit the Indian market. So I personally think that it will not have a large impact on the cash market as well. Now comes to the DIIs have pumped in about 6 lakh crores last year, and they continue to do so. So I personally think it will be a buying opportunity because I would categorize this as an escalation, not a completely fresh war. Like the war when it broke out between Russia and Ukraine had very, very large falls.
Okay.
And that's why I would say that it will be a buying opportunity if it gave you a 5-7% correction.
Sure, a buying opportunity, but what happens to oil prices? Oil prices, in fact, crude has already crossed about 12% or so higher is what we were reading this morning, at about $73 a barrel, up from under 65 a barrel just a few days ago. And from here, what happens to overall global economies, the Indian economy, if oil continues to rise?
I think definitely that could have a little medium-term impact if the oil prices remain elevated. If you look at the fiscal deficit, of course, the position is very, very healthy. If you look at, but that can actually change. So if the oil prices remain high for the rest of the financial year, then I think the rate cut cycle is over, point one. Point two, we have now reached 45% level of fiscal deficit as a percentage of total revenues. We at Anand Rathi like to look at fiscal deficit as percentage of revenues, not just as percentage of GDPs. It had touched almost 100 during COVID. That means if my revenues, tax revenues and other revenues are equal to 100 rupees, I was spending 200 and hence the deficit was 100. So the point I'm trying to make is now fiscal deficit has come back into control with respect to percentage of revenues because the direct tax collections have gone up 13.7%. GST numbers have come healthy, reflecting a great GDP number for this financial year as well. But I'm a little worried on the fiscal side if the crude prices remain elevated due to this war tensions, if that remains for a couple of quarters.
All right, Feroze Azeez, thank you so much for your time this morning. Well, of course, we will continue to track the markets, we will continue to track the oil prices, and we will try to continue to track the economy as well and see what turn it takes. But meanwhile, the market's not responding well at all to the escalation in conflict in West Asia. Nifty 50 is down 1.4%, below the 25,000 level at about 24,603 at 9:25 a.m. We also have Sensex crashing almost a similar 1.13%, below the 81,000 mark at about 80,000. Volatility, as expected, is higher by about 10% this morning, above the 15 levels or so. Well, all of this is a direct consequence of what we are seeing happen in the Middle East, in West Asia, after Israel took up the mantle pretty much, on its own, saying that there has been no U.S. involvement in taking that decision to go ahead and strike the nuclear enrichment plant in Iran. Let's listen in to what Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, said.
Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat. For decades, the tyrants of Tehran have brazenly, openly called for Israel's destruction. They've backed up their genocidal rhetoric with a program to develop nuclear weapons. In recent years, Iran has produced enough highly enriched uranium for 9 atom bombs. 9. In recent months, Iran has taken steps that it has never taken before, steps to weaponize this enriched uranium. And if not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year, it could be within a few months, less than a year. This is a clear and present danger to Israel's very survival. 80 years ago, the Jewish people were the victims of a Holocaust perpetrated by the Nazi regime. Today, the Jewish state refuses to be a victim of a nuclear Holocaust perpetrated by the Iranian regime. Now, as Prime Minister, I've made it clear time and again, Israel will never allow those who call for our annihilation to develop the means to achieve that goal. Tonight, Israel backs those words with action. We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear enrichment program. We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear weaponization program. We targeted Iran's main enrichment facility in Natanz. We targeted Iran's leading nuclear scientists working on the Iranian bomb. We also struck at the heart of Iran's ballistic missile program. Last year, Iran fired 300 ballistic missiles at Israel. Each of these missiles carries a ton of explosives and threatens the lives of hundreds of people. Soon, those missiles could carry a nuclear payload, threatening the lives not of hundreds, but of millions. Iran is gearing up to produce 10,000 of those ballistic missiles within 3 years. Now just imagine 10,000 tons of TNT landing on a country the size of New Jersey. This is an intolerable threat. It too must be stopped. Iran is now working on what it calls the new plan to destroy Israel. You see, the old plan failed. Iran and its proxies tried to encircle Israel with a ring of fire and to attack us with the horrible attack of October 7th. But the people of Israel, the soldiers of Israel, rose like lions to defend our country.
Now, following Israel's strike on Iran, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said Washington was not involved in Israel's strikes against Iran, while also urging Tehran not to target U.S. interests or personnel in the region. Iran's foreign ministry, meanwhile, said, and I quote, "United States, as Israel's main supporter, will be responsible for the consequences of Israel's adventurism." Now remember, Iran and the US have held multiple rounds of nuclear negotiations in recent months, but they yielded little progress. Meanwhile, Oman, the acting as a mediator in the US and Iran nuclear talks, warns that the attack risks wiping out diplomatic pathways and destabilizing regional security as well as stability.